Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you so much for continuing to stay with us for our next session, providing outstanding service to distance learners and direct reports. This session is being recorded. All recordings from today's sessions will go out tomorrow. If you don't see those, check in your clutter. It will be coming from Eventbrite, the site that you registered on. And we've heard that several times those show up in clutter, so make sure to check those there. Our presenter for this session is Maria Torres with Bluegrass Community and Technical College. Maria has been a part of higher education since 2007. She started teaching Microsoft Office at National College. After 3 years, she left National College to pursue her master's degree. As soon as she completed her degree, she became an adjunct faculty at KCTCS in January of 2012. In July of 2013, she became a full-time employee at New Horizons Computer Learning Centers as one of their Microsoft Office application instructors, where she rose to the top 10 instructors within the first 3 months of employment. In the summer of 2017, she came back to BCTC as a full-time staff member, and she is the Professional and Organizational Development Manager. So she works with us on the PD peer team as well. She also adjuncts for the Office of Technology, the Office of Technology program of the college. Maria, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your expertise. And I will turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome. All right, so I'm going to start us off with a cool little video that I made for all of you. The video contains 14 tips to excellent customer service. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So give me just a few secs here.
Oh, looks like Maria dropped off. She's reconnecting. Hang tight, everyone. Hi, Maria, you're back.
Hello, sorry about that. We lost connection.
No worries.
connected using button.
All right. Moving right along, I'm going to go ahead and start my presentation now. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay still. All right, as Paige mentioned, I'm brand new to the college. I started back this summer, and actually one of my projects is that we're working on the KCTC Professional Development Resource Center. So all the presentations that I create, they typically do have our logo that we have created as well as the name. All right, so let's talk about the agenda, the topics that we will be covering in this presentation. We will begin with how to better service your students as well as the team members, such as your direct reports. Then we will talk about mistakes that we can avoid. And then finally, how successful teams as well as students look like. Now, we know that KCTCS has more than 16 very fuzzy audio. KCTCS has over 16 colleges and more than 70 campuses across Kentucky, and sometimes it is kind of hard for us to get everybody together within one room. And that is why having and or embracing technology is always going to be a big plus. So let's move right along. Sorry, I'm having some technical issues here. All right, so let's talk about some of the mistakes that we can avoid when it comes to customer service. Sometimes, and a lot of us may do this, we wait for the team members and especially for the students to speak up. And I'm talking more about those that are distant learners. Sometimes when we don't hear from the students, we may think, oh, they must be doing okay with the assignments or with the exams, et cetera, et cetera. So we have to make sure that we are always in contact with the students, either by opening a discussion board on Blackboard or just by simple email and making sure that everybody's doing okay. You can also make use of the announcements. And the same goes with your teams. I can give you the example of Bluegrass Community College. We do have 7 colleges, and there are 3 that we call the regionals. So there's a lot of us that are far away, and sometimes we may feel left out. So again, you can make use of the technology in order to keep everybody engaged. One very good example that I can give you is Skype. We can always use Skype for business, for meetings, as well as for training sessions, if that is the case. You can also add team members that may not be ready to virtually interact, and this is a big one. Sometimes when we do start a new job, especially, we don't know that we're going to be obligated to use certain technology. So you have to make sure that your team members, as well as the students, of course, because a lot of us do take online classes, we may not know how to use certain technology. So you may want to start by asking some simple questions, such as, have you thought about the challenges of taking an online class? How do you think that you're going to be able to address those challenges? Have you thought about isolation? Because that's one big deal that we have to face when we do take online classes or when we work remotely. You also have to think about the fact of miscommunication, especially if you're going to be relying on email all the time. You have to make sure that you make or that you write those emails clearly. You also have to think about that you have to seek that interaction with your students as well as with your team members. You also have to think about that some of the students may not have very good work ethics and or be responsible to be taking an online class. So for those of us who advise students when it comes to taking certain classes, you may always want to make this very clear to them as to what to expect
when taking an online class. Also, when it comes to team members, when we are working remotely, you have to think about the fact that you're going to have very little to no supervision, and you have to feel comfortable with working on your own. Also, you have to make sure that you're going to be able to communicate effectively via either email, instant messaging, or any other type of technology. And then finally, you have to make sure that you will be able to complete all of your projects remotely in an effective way and by meeting all the deadlines. Now, when it comes to, for example, convening your meetings, you have to think about something that is not just convenient for the meeting organizer. So you have to make sure that you get a hold of everybody ahead of time and give them the different options that they have when it comes to the time and amount of time for each and every single meeting. Now, if people are not complaining, we tend to think that they must be okay. And this goes back to the first bullet point, that if they're not saying anything, they must be okay. Again, you have to make sure that you are in constant contact with your team members as well as with your students. Inadequate feedback in our coaching. This is another big one. We have to make sure that we are clear when we communicate with the students as far as the expectations. What I always do when it comes to my classes, from the get-go, I tell them, these are the expectations of the class. For example, you have to be on time each and every time. You have to stay in class for the duration of the class. You have to make sure that you do ask questions. If you don't want to ask the questions directly to me, you're more than welcome to shoot me an email with your questions. You can call my office, you can make an appointment, and if need be, do please get a tutor. So you have to make sure that you communicate with them at all times. All right, so now let's talk about what successful teams as well as students look like. Now, when we do have a successful team, it typically looks like everyone is integrated in the planning and decision making. So basically what that means is that before you have your meetings, develop and share an agenda and make sure that you only display in your agenda those items that are must topics. And this is going to give everybody the ability of adding any other topic of their interest to the agenda. Second, you have to make sure that you delegate roles and rotate. So basically, when you do have your meetings, make sure that you spice them up, you make them different, you assign different tasks to different people each and every time. For example, you can have somebody different each meeting to take those meeting notes, etc. And always clarify next steps. And this is something huge because typically we tend to say, okay, does anybody have a question? Was everything clear? And most of us, like right on the spot, we cannot think of any questions. So you make sure that you clarify those next steps so that everybody knows exactly what they're expected to do. I'm actually going to go back a little bit. So give me just a sec here. To how to better service your students and team members. Now, one of the things that we have to do is make sure that we open communication with everyone. And in order for us to do that, again, using technology, what we could do is, for example, have monthly or quarterly video sessions. And just like today, we could be using Blackboard Collaborate, so you can have, if you don't have access to that, you can have someone create an e-community for you so that you can actually create sessions via Collaborate. Obviously, we also have access to Skype for Business. You have to make sure that you set up a test, check for the technology before the meeting. I don't know if any one of you got the chance to actually do that as far as the moderators, but it's always good to test the technology. Make sure that your audio is working properly. If you're going to be showing video, make sure that your camera is working as well. Now, another good idea is for you to share your calendars. We do have Outlook 2016, and with that, we're going to be saving a little bit of time because instead of having to use, for example, doodle polls, we can just share our calendars with our team members, and that way, when we go to set up a meeting, we can just use the scheduling assistant instead of having to ask or send a bunch of emails asking, okay, this many people can meet at 10 a.m., but this other people can meet at 11 a.m. Again, anything that you can do to save time. Another good thing to do is share information via OneDrive. We also have access to OneDrive, so you can collaborate on different documentation by placing those on your OneDrive and then sharing those with your team.
Maria?
You can also, yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's kind of a buzzing going along with your with the microphone. I'm not sure if you've got a headset on or if you're using your computer, but there's some kind of buzzing that's a little distracting for some folks.
I'm using headsets. What can I do to solve that issue?
Yeah, because it's coming on. Every time you speak, there's a little buzz around it. It was there to begin with, and then it kind of went away, and then it started it up again.
Okay.
You may try unplugging the headphone and just going straight with your computer mic, or as Elizabeth suggested, you could always, yeah, it could be your computer mic that's picking up in that, as Mary said as well. And we've also got the phone option. I just didn't know if you wanted to try something. It comes and goes, and then it's a little distracting. And you've got great suggestions and stuff for us. So I didn't want anybody to miss any of it.
Okay, so I unplugged my headphones. Can you please tell me if that sounds better?
I think it did. Say a little bit more.
Can you hear me better?
Still had that buzzing on it. Were you guys still hearing that as well? Yeah, looks like maybe there's a speaker. Try turning your speakers down themselves.
Okay.
Every time somebody was chatting, we could hear that coming in.
How's that?
Yeah, right there it was coming in really loud and you weren't even talking. So I'm not sure what's going on. As Elizabeth said, you can try to mute your speakers. It won't affect your mic.
Okay, give me just 1 second, okay? I'm going to mute myself for just a sec.
Thanks, everyone, for your patience on this. We're learning.
All right, guys, can you hear me okay? I'm going to move forward. I tried doing a couple things, so hopefully that solved the issue there, okay?
It's better. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Paige. All right, so going back to the slide here. As I was mentioning, another thing that I like to do, especially with the students, and this is something that I actually heard a couple of times today, we have to try to be proactive instead of reactive. And I also heard the rule of answering to the students about 4 hours after they have sent an email. And in my personal opinion, I use more like 4 minutes. So what I do is I do not rely on my computer all the time. What I do is that I have on my phone, on my smartphone, I have my Outlook as well as my Skype. So as soon as I get a notification that I got an email from a student, I reply as soon as I can. And I think the slowest response was like a minute. And they do appreciate this a lot. And just like it was mentioned, it's going to make a big difference when it comes to how the students see the school, how the students see the instructor, and how quickly they will be able to solve whatever issue that they're trying to address with you. So again, always use technology whenever you can, and that's going to facilitate the way that you do things as well as the way that the students do things. Now here, also set the expectations early on. I talked about this as well earlier. Allow for in-person interactions when possible. Again, since we tend to be separated by distance, let's say that you're going to be at one of the colleges where you have some direct reports. Do let them know that you will be in and arrange to have a lunch or maybe a breakfast with them. They will definitely appreciate it if you were to do that. The same if they were to travel to where you are, then I'm pretty sure that they will be more than happy to meet with you and the rest of the team to have a lunch and or a breakfast. So make it kind of human, put that human touch in play. And then finally, encourage your team to virtually seek feedback. Again, when we are told how we're doing things, especially when we get positive criticism, it's always going to allow us to only become better. So always open those communication ways there. All right, so that's basically the end of this presentation. So please do let me know if you do have any questions about what I talked about. Again, mistakes to avoid when it comes to your students as well as your team members. What do successful teams and students look like?
Thank you so much, Maria. In the chat area, we don't have any questions right now, but I did just put a chat in there for them to post any questions to you. Thank you so much for those tips. Sorry about the feedback that was going on and the little buzzing. I'm not sure what that was. For our next online conference, we went through everything. Maria and I tested everything, so it was working. Wasn't doing that, but it's always game day, right? Then things happen.
Right. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you so much, Maria. I haven't seen any questions come in, so I think we're all good. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. This session has been recorded. It will go out on tomorrow. All recordings from today will go out tomorrow. They may show up in your clutter, and it will be from Eventbrite. So make sure to look for that. Our next session is coming up at 4. And let me pull that screen up. There we go. So our next session, Oh No You Didn't, is coming up at 4. The presenters for this are Clarissa Hill and Felissa Johnson from Madisonville. And they have given us a warning that sarcasm is included. So I hope you can stay with us for our final presentation of the day at 4 o'clock. We'll come back in about 35 minutes to finish up. Thank you guys so much.